One of the first options that you have to really start letting you kind of meet these needs is what are called calculated fields. And calculated fields do exactly what they sound. They allow you to automate manual calculations from an application perspective. The nice thing about doing calculated fields in CRM is the calculated fields give you the capabilities to not only perform calculations on the current record that you're working with or using fields from the current record that you're going through, but they also give you the capabilities to pull in information from related entities. So for example, if I had I wanted to basically add up two numbers, I could perform a calculated field that looks at two fields that are on the event entity and adds up those two fields. Or if I wanted to pre-populate or populate some type of information into another field from another entity, I could actually take a field from a related entity and I could create a calculated field that pulls that information in and displays it on the form that I'm currently working with. And so what's nice about that is it gives you the capabilities to actually pull in information from the parent entity. So one of the things we'll show you here in kind of an example is on the event registration, I will show you how to pull in the actual event cost specifically from the event entity, so you can work with that. The other thing that you can do with these calculated fields is rather than having it just perform a straight calculation, you can actually have it evaluate some conditions, and you can have it look at conditions first and then provide calculations based upon those specific conditions within the application itself. And so this is very common if you were trying to do, maybe like a weighted revenue scenario where you're on an opportunity and now you want to take the estimated revenue and you want to multiply that by the probability percentage to kind of come up with a weighted revenue based upon where we're at for that scenario. Very common when you start looking at like sales pipelines and then some of those types of different situations. Maybe I want to do a cost of labor where I want to be able to look at all the different factors that are involved with me going out and providing a service for a customer, and I want to add up multiple fields to look at that. Or maybe I want to do a scenario where I have, assets and liabilities all being tracked for a specific item that I'm working with, and I want to do some calculations on that to be able to calculate the net worth of a specific contact or person within the application itself. So they really provide you with a lot of flexibility to be able to kind of perform that. So let's look a little bit at how calculated fields work from an application perspective. So I'm going to go back into my event management solution, and I'm on my registrations. And so I've got two basic things I want to accomplish here. The first thing that I want to accomplish is I want to be able to pull in the event fee or how much the event costs specifically from the event record. So I want to have a field that's basically called event fee that pulls in the cost from the event field or the event entity. I also want to have another field in the application that captures how much the person has paid for that event. And so if the event fee is $500, I want to be able to have another field where I can say that we've collected $500 from this person. And then I want to have another field on there that says remaining fee to be collected or something like that, that basically subtracts those two fields together so I can see what the remaining balance is for this registration for this person. And so now I'm going to create a new field in my registration entity. I'm going to call this event fee. And I'm going to make this a currency field because as we talked about in the previous scenario, the event cost on the event entity is a currency field. Now I have the capabilities to come into here and actually change the field type. And so you'll notice that since I've chose a data type of currency, I have a few different options here. I can leave it as just a simple field, which means there's no calculations or anything taking place within it. I can make it a calculated field where I can actually use it to perform calculations. And because this is a numeric value, I also have the option to make it a roll-up field, and we'll talk a little bit about roll-up fields here in just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and make this a calculated field. Now, when you create a field, that is the only point in time where you can specify the field type. Much like the data type, once the field type has been specified, you do not have the ability to change it. So there isn't a mechanism where if down the road you realize that you had a currency field and you wanted to make it a calculated field, there's no mechanism for changing that. You would basically have to recreate the field as a calculated field and work with the information from there. Once I specify that I want this to be a calculated field, Then I can go ahead and hit edit. And what's going to happen is it's automatically going to save this field. So the field's going to be created, the schema name's going to be saved, the data type's going to be saved, and the field type's going to be saved. And then it's going to open up my formula window where I can actually start creating the formula and modifying the information that I want to work with from here. And so when this opens up, it uses a very similar editor to what you'll see when we start talking a little bit about business rules when we get into Module 9. But it's really just an if statement that says, okay, if there's a specific condition, what is the action that I want to do, which in this case is going to be a calculation. Now, from this perspective, I really don't have a condition that would really need to be met. All I want to be able to do is feed in the total cost or the event cost from the event entity. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go straight into add action. And now it's going to give me some different options. And so you can see that, based upon the different types of fields that you're working with, there's date and time calculations, so I can add days to a specific date and time field. I could do a date difference, so I could do kind of a subtraction if I wanted to, subtract a start and an end time. I could work with information from there. And if I keep scrolling down, there's just different options. Well, one of the options that you'll see down here is this TSP_event lookup. Remember that when we created the event registration, we created a lookup field that allows us to look up and associate it with a specific event, which created a lookup field. By creating that lookup field, I now have that field available for me to be able to use specifically in this instance. And so now if I go ahead and specify basically, if I hit period, now this is going to pull up all of my individual fields that are associated with the event entity. And so I now have the capabilities to basically grab a field from the event entity and use it with this particular item. Now in this case, the one that I'm most concerned with is this TSP_event cost. And so I can basically click on this, or I could type the information in, but the thing to remember here is that it's a currency field. So I want to make sure that it's the same data type as what I'm trying to accomplish. When I click on this and select it, now I'm saying that I want the value of this field to basically come from whatever the event cost is for the particular event I'm working with. In this case, I can go ahead and click on OK or hit the checkbox, and it will save my formula. Now, if for some reason I had picked anything that was invalid, or I didn't have the same data type, or something like that, when I click on that check mark, it's going to validate that and make sure that it is going to be an effective calculation. And if for any reason there was an error or something like that, it would prevent me from actually being able to do that in the application. Everything was fine here. I had no real concerns, so I can go ahead and hit save and close. And it'll save this field on the item, and then I can work with what I want to do from there. And then I will, once I've saved and closed the calculation, then I want to save and close the actual field, and it brings me back to my solution and into my field screen. So we talked about, okay, I want to pull in the event fee or the event fee from the event cost on the event entity. Another thing that I would potentially want to be able to do is to figure out how much we've collected and then calculate a remaining balance. So I know kind of what we need from that scenario from an event cost. So now I'm going to create a new field. I'm going to call this fee collected. I'm going to make this a currency field. And all I want to be able to do here is really just enter in a numeric value. So I've set the data type as currency. I'm going to set the minimum value to 0. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save and new, because I don't need to really do anything with this. I'm just using this to facilitate a calculation here in just a little bit. So I'm going to hit save and new. And now I'm going to create this remaining balance field. And so once this is done saving, it'll open up another field. I'm going to call this remaining balance. I'm going to make it a currency field. Now I'm going to change this to a calculated field, and I'll hit edit. and it'll open up my formula. And now basically I'm going to subtract the amount paid, or the balance, the fee paid, from the event fee. So I'm going to go into my add action. I will look and see kind of what I've got here. So I've got my event fee. So I'm going to click on event fee. I'm going to hit minus, and then I'm going to go down into my fee collected and choose that. So all I'm doing here is subtracting the fee from the fee collected to get the remaining balance. And then I can go ahead and save and close my calculation, and then save and close the field. Now, once we've gone through all this, we'll add the information to the forms here so you can actually see what this looks like from an application perspective. But again, this is a great way if you're looking to have some baseline calculations taking place in the application. You can see not only can I pull information in from a parent record and use that within the context of what it is that I'm trying to work with, but I also have the capabilities, if I want to go in and just perform kind of straight calculations. They're fairly simplistic calculations. If you need to get overly complicated, you still may need to engage a developer in some perspective, but you can accomplish quite a bit just by using some of the standard calculated fields that are in the application.